Welcome back to the Automation Podcast, the world's #1 industrial automation product and technology show. Thanks to you, our audience of highly skilled automation professionals. Thank you for being a member of our audience, and thank you for tuning back in this week. And we got a special treat for you this week. I sit down with Chuck Ridgeway from Horner Automation to learn about their brand new line of modular PLCs. Pretty exciting stuff. But before we get to that, I do have one announcement. I want to thank Horner Automation for sponsoring this episode so I can release it to you completely ad-free. I think we all like it when these episodes don't have any ads in them. And in appreciation for Horner Automation sponsoring this episode, you will find links that go directly to their products in the description. So if you see anybody from Horner, please thank them for sponsoring this episode of the Automation Podcast. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and jump into my sit-down interview with Chuck Ridgeway from Horner Automation and learn all about their new modular PLCs. Chuck, welcome back to the Automation Podcast. It's been over a year since we had you on, and I am so excited to learn about what's new with Horner Automation. But before we go into that, if you could, for those people who maybe didn't see our last couple episodes, could you reintroduce yourself and your company to our audience?
Sure. So I'm Chuck Ridgeway. I'm the Automation Technology Manager at Horner. And basically, I am kind of the, brand ambassador for Horner, but from a technical standpoint. So what I do is I am the person who is, providing content when it comes to training videos and other technical content that we provide on our YouTube channel. And I'm also one of the people that is, working at the trade shows and the other public events to try and promote our products. Now, my background is I'm an electrical engineer by degree. I've been in the automation industry for 40 plus years now, and with Horner for more than 35. And really, I've been a product manager for a good part of my career. And then I've also been, an applications engineer earlier than that. So I'm always, at heart, I'm an applications engineer. I love automation. I love PLCs and similar components. And I just, at this stage of my career, I love telling people about them online.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, when I was doing the news from 23 and 24, you guys were you had new information coming out all the time. The way you treat your customers and providing them with tutorials and new information on a regular basis, I think was second to none. And I always appreciated
Great.
that because you guys had a lot of good stuff to sell. So let me turn it back over to you so you can jump us into your presentation and tell us all about your company and what's new.
Sounds great. Let's get started. Okay, so it's important for people to know who Horner Automation is because we're not necessarily the biggest name in the industry. So a lot of folks might think, well, Horner Automation sounds like a system integrator, but in reality, we are a US-based PLC manufacturer. That's basically the main product that we manufacture. And we're best known for a PLC that has a built-in HMI with free software. Now, we call that an all-in-one controller. To differentiate a bit from a traditional PLC that doesn't include a built-in HMI. And one of the reasons we're maybe not as well known as we should be because our company is more than 75 years old. We've been in the industrial automation business for 40 years, but a lot of our customers are OEMs, and OEMs like to have their name front and center on the machine, as it should be. So we don't put our name on the front of our products, and that kind of keeps us in the background. And to a certain extent makes this a little bit of a best kept secret, if you will. Now, some things that you should know about Horner, certainly that your listeners and viewers should know, is we are a US-based company. We're based in Indianapolis, although we do have customers all over the world, and we do have Horner offices all over the world as well. Now, most of our products are made in the USA, are manufactured here in the States. And we design most of our own hardware and software. Nearly everything we sell, we've designed, including hardware and software, as I just mentioned. That means that our products, for the most part, are Build America, Buy America compliant. That's BABA, which is something that's been around for the last couple of years. And it's a requirement for any government-funded type automation. But that's something that we can meet without any problem because of where we manufacture. Some other important things to know is Horner lead times are short, significantly shorter than the industrial average. Our development software that's used to program our products, like any other PLC, you need to have software to program it. Our software is free, and we don't charge for support. either technical support or for field updates. If you want to upgrade a product in the field, no problem. That doesn't cost anything. And one last thing, because we do support OEMs extensively, our product life cycles are long, with many of our products having life cycles exceeding 20 years, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. Now, for those who aren't familiar with all-in-one controllers, it is just like I described it. It's a PLC with a built-in HMI. But what that means is when you look at a unit from the front, it just looks like a traditional HMI. It's not until you turn it over and look at the back that you can see, oh, in addition to all the networking connections and things and maybe a memory card slot, there's also, built-in I/O, inputs, outputs, analog, that sort of thing. And inside, of course, what you can't see, our products program just like any other PLC, and you can program them with traditional ladder logic, or if you prefer IEC, our standard software package called Cscape allows you to program in either way, okay, whatever you prefer. And we also support a lot of the industry standard communications protocols like Ethernet IP and Modbus TCP. Also, we support, MQTT Sparkplug for those folks who are looking to digitize their machines. So we support a lot of the industry standard protocols as well. Now, we have 3 primary all-in-one controller product lines. We have our Micro Series, which is our entry level, and it's great for simple machines where cost is really critical. We also have a series which wasn't around the last time I was on your show, Shawn, and that is our Canvas series. That is our newest high-level graphics platform where we've really amped up the graphic capabilities a few notches. And it also has great performance from a scan rate and a logic capacity standpoint, and it supports every protocol that we have ever supported is pretty much built in to the Canvas as free. Now, not to be neglected is our XL Prime series. That is kind of our bread and butter series, the products we've been selling for many, many years. And as I mentioned earlier, our product life cycles are very long. So even though these products on the surface look a little bit dated in terms of their styling, if you will, all the electronics have been continuously updated, and we've supported these products again, in many cases beyond 20 years. So that's our other kind of series, our XL Prime series as well. And then our products as all-in-one controllers are used just about everywhere that PLCs are used. There really isn't a market that we don't participate, whether that's oil and gas, water, wastewater, you name it, building automation. Just about every market we're there as well. So that's kind of enough of the preliminaries. Let's get into what's new at Horner. And as we do that, let's spend a minute talking about the differences, advantages, and disadvantages between the all-in-one approach that Horner has traditionally taken and the modular approach that PLCs have traditionally taken to machine control. So the advantages to the all-in-one approach that Horner has, promoted for many years, the first advantage is it takes up a lot less space, right? When you've got the screen and the I/O and the controller all in one component, it just doesn't take up as much space, which means typically it costs less and the machine costs less because, the enclosure and other components can be smaller. So if you have a tabletop machine, maybe in the medical industry or something, assembling a medical product or testing a product, if you have a tabletop level machine, it's hard to beat an all-in-one controller because it has all the functionality in a lot less space. And some other advantages include one program to manage. So if you've got a all-in-one, you have one program for all your operator interface and your logic. So that's one program to manage and one device with one piece of firmware as well. So that can be something that people forget about. That's a real advantage. Also, our business model, since we're not a major manufacturer and we're not a PLC manufacturer that charges for software, our business model is also attractive. Again, no software charge, no support charge. That's a big deal to people. Now, all that being said, there are certainly advantages to PLCs, and we can't neglect those. The first one is familiarity. Everybody's heard of Rockwell and Siemens, and for good reason. Okay, they're huge corporations involved in a lot of different industries, and certainly the PLC market is one of them for sure. And as huge corporations, very often selecting their products is seen as a safe choice, right? And their products and products from PLCs in general are very often specified by major manufacturers in industries like food and beverage and paper and those sorts of things. So many times the specific PLC or a PLC is specified, whereas other automation components aren't always as closely specified. And then another real advantage practically is if you've got a fairly large I/O count, having all your I/O connections on the DIN rail is a big deal. I mean, that makes it much easier to wire. You know, if you've got a dozen or maybe 2 dozen connections to be made on a small machine on the back of one of our products, that works fantastic. But if that I/O count starts building, having those connections gets a little bit, only on the back of our unit, gets a little bit clunky, if you will. So having connections on the DIN rail is a big advantage. And then finally, let's just face it, some customers just prefer separate components. That's the way they've done it. They're happy with that approach. They feel like that's the better approach, is to have separate components. Which leads me into the latest development at Horner, and that is we have added modular controllers, which basically, for those of you who have the visuals and can see it, they basically look just like PLCs, okay? So they are shaped like PLCs, they mount on DIN rail, they have local expandable I/O. They basically are PLCs, but just like everything else we do at Horner, there is a bit of a twist. And what is the twist? Well, the twist is that several of these modular controllers include what we call a display connector. Okay, now we're not talking about an Ethernet port or something for connecting an extra display. We're talking about a dedicated display connector. And what that gives you is you get the architecture of a PLC because your display is a separate component, but you get the advantages other than space savings of an all-in-one controller because you have one application that's running in the CPU that does both logic and graphics. So it's just one application. And it programs just like one of our all-in-ones because the logic and the graphics are all in the same application file. And you still use the same free software that we've developed over the years. So that's really the twist, that display connector. Now, how does that work though, right? How does that work? Well, basically what we have done is we have created a series of industrial touchscreens called HMI Connect, okay? And they plug in with a single cable to that display connector. And that single cable provides power for the touchscreen, as well as the video signal, as well as a path for the feedback from the operator. So as the operator makes adjustments and starts and stops, all that information gets back to the display. This is not a web browser type approach. This is not a separate HMI that requires programming or setup or all of that. It's literally a touchscreen component. And the way it works is we have borrowed technology from the automotive industry. So in your car today, you probably have a variety of different displays and touchscreens on your dash. And the way most of that works these days is those displays are connected through something called FPD link back to the electronics that drive them. And FPD link is a established, proven technology, and it's the same technology that we're using with HMI Connect. It is, again, that single bidirectional cable that carries video, touch feedback, and power on a single cable. And it's really robust. And that's why we didn't adopt something like HDMI, which is in our living rooms, of course, with our televisions, or DisplayPort, which is a common technology for computer monitors. Those are great technologies, but those are consumer level technologies, or maybe a commercial level technology. FPD link is much more rugged than that, and if it works in automotive, it's going to work fantastic in industrial automation. As an example, the frequency of the signals that are carried on FPD link is 2 gigahertz. So there's a lot of technology under the hood, but it's, again, ruggedized and reliable.
Hey everybody, just wanted to jump in here quickly and thank Horner Automation for sponsoring this episode so we could release it ad-free. One of the benefits of vendor sponsoring this episode is we put their links in the description. So if you want to know more about what we're talking today, Just scroll down to the description and you'll find some links that go directly to Horner Automation's websites and social media sites. With that said, let's go ahead and jump back in and learn more about their modular PLCs from Chuck Ridgeway.
When it comes to which displays, which HMI Connect displays you can connect to our CPUs, you've got a pretty wide variety. We have a standard series of displays, HMI Connect displays, that basically from the surface look a lot like one of our all-in-one controllers. They're the same shape, they mount the same way, they're the same cutout sizes. It's just that, again, they're just a touchscreen component. You can panel mount them like you would one of our products through the door of an enclosure. That gives them an IP65 or NEMA 4X washdown type rating. Or if you choose, you could also mount them on a Visa mount, something like a monitor mount. But if you do that, you lose your rating and you're really down to IP20 in that scenario. But we also offer an advanced series of HMI Connect displays that are really designed for really rugged applications. So on their own, without any special enclosure, they're rated for IP67. They're high bright displays, so they work extremely well outdoors in direct sunlight. They're ruggedized from the standpoint they're manufactured using metal. They're all metal construction with basically glass that's shatterproof. And they're also capacitive touch. And from a mounting standpoint, you can either mount them panel mounted like a traditional HMI, or you can mount them on those Visa monitor type mounts because it's got that Visa pattern on. And again, it's going to keep its IP67 rating. So, we have quite a selection of different displays available to connect to our CPUs for those folks that want that separate approach between their screen and their controller. Another cool byproduct of the HMI Connect approach with FPD Link is that we have what's called a splitter. And that splitter can be used to allow up to 3 identical HMI Connect displays to be connected to a single CPU, which means you can now distribute your HMIs across a fairly large machine, maybe one display at the front of the machine, one at the back. Whatever the case may be, you now can locate multiple displays if you choose on your machine. And there's no extra programming to do because literally the splitter takes that FPD Link signal and distributes it equally to the 3 different displays. And then another advantage of this approach is it also extends the distance from which the displays can be located from the CPU. Instead of being within 8 meters, they can now be within 16 meters. So again, it extends the distance as well. So it's just a pretty cool technology that we are really the first ones to implement in more of an industrial automation type application. In terms of the CPUs that are available in our lineup, we have CPUs with and without built-in I/O, CPUs with and without that display connector, because we acknowledge that, some applications don't need any kind of display at all. So those are more like traditional PLCs that you might use on a blind type application. And all these products are available today with the exception of we have, for those of you who have the visuals, we have a CPU 260, which is a micro style PLC with built-in I/O and a built-in display connector. That particular model isn't quite available yet, but all the rest are currently available. And we have more in development as well. So really what that does is that really provides our users or anybody considering using Horner with 3 different architectures they can choose to use. Of course, if they have a small machine or a machine where an all-in-one makes perfect sense, they can continue to use that because we're not changing our emphasis on an all-in-one controllers. We've been a market leader there and we're going to continue to be moving forward. For those applications where they like the all-in-one approach, but they'd prefer to do their I/O wiring mostly on DIN rail, they can use one of our all-in-one controllers, maybe wire a few of the operators on the door to the back of our unit, but expand the system with DIN rail mounted I/O. That's also available and is a platform we've supported for quite a while now. And then that new architecture is the real traditional PLC approach, where they literally have the same architecture as a traditional PLC with the added advantage of a single program for graphics and logic and a remotely mounted touchscreen component that requires no setup and no configuration. So there's really 3 architectures now that we can provide our customers at Horner, all using the same configuration software, which is our Seascape 10 package. So that's one of the ways that Horner is trying to appeal to kind of the traditional PLC user. But another of the advantages that we're trying to, winnow away at is the familiarity advantage. The big manufacturers have had their products in universities and trade schools for many years, and they have big names also. So, their products are more familiar to the market than Horner products are. So how can Horner raise its familiarity, especially with new engineers who are going to be evaluating and selecting different options in their future automation products? Well, what we have done to help address that is basically we have, a few months ago, we formulated an updated Horner Automation academic program. So this is a program that's designed to get Horner equipment in the hands of tech schools, universities, anybody who's teaching automation or teaching control, any institution, any legitimate institution. Our goal is to get Horner PLCs in their hands so they can use for their laboratory materials, their training materials. And we want to get that in their hands at no cost. Okay, so we're not talking about excess inventory or obsolete inventory. We're really talking about the latest Horner products, getting that in the hands of educational institutions. And we've got several options for them. The first option is our new modular controllers that are basically a traditional PLC. So we're offering them the ability to, to accept our high-end CPU 300 with local I/O, as well as HMI Connect touchscreens, so that their labs can have more of a traditional PLC type architecture. So that certainly is an option that has been attractive so far, as we've had conversations with several different academic institutions. And so that's one option we give them. And if they're building out a traditional controls lab, this is probably the most popular option. But we're also offering the ability, if they would prefer, to use a all-in-one controller as the heart of their lab. And in some cases, some educational institutions have decided that they see an advantage to potentially getting the hardware in a more compact package, maybe more portable, so it's maybe accessible to students outside of the lab in some cases. And so we're giving them that option as well. So if they prefer to go with an all-in-one approach, then that's an option that we give them. Now, in either case, they're going to need to create lab materials and curriculum and those sorts of things. So we have plenty of resources in helping them create that material. So we have prepared labs. We can send them quick start guides for all of our products. Of course, Shawn, as you mentioned earlier, we have hundreds and hundreds of videos on our YouTube channel because we've been putting a video out every week for about the last 5 years. So, and in many cases, students, if they have a question on a particular subject or particular area of our product, they can do a quick search and find a YouTube video to find that answer. So those are all resources that we make available to the educational institutions. And we think there are some real advantages to this educational program. Of course, from a Horner perspective, our goal is to get familiarity up with our products and get more new engineers familiar with Horner as an option in their workplace. But we're talking about free modern equipment, not excess inventory. And frankly, our products are highly comparable to the larger manufacturers. They're programmed using the exact same languages, American style or traditional ladder logic or the IEC languages. Those are both supported. So that's very comparable to what you'll find in the larger manufacturers. And also our products include not only a display in either case, but also they include the most prevalent industrial protocols as well. So Ethernet IP, Modbus TCP to name 2. So if they want to add to their curriculum some industrial networking or communications type labs, they have that option as well. So again, this is our educational program, which kind of wraps up what I wanted to talk to you about today, Sean.
Yeah, and I can definitely see an advantage if there are any instructors out there. You know, with Horner, they have their ladder logic, and then they support IEC 61131-3.
Hmm.
So you're getting a PLC that actually you can teach them two different ways of programming.
Right.
Okay, so you're expanding the knowledge because so many people come out of school only knowing one model, and that can
Right.
really hold them back because these devices are so different than each other. So you're getting two different types of programming languages there.
Mhm.
Plus, you're getting an HMI, so definitely an advantage there. Now, Chuck, I did have one question as you're going through,
Sure.
and I was very impressed for you people listening. The four different models of PLCs they're releasing. It's a nice range there. And so my question goes to, I think it's awesome that the displays fit the same holes as your existing devices, right?
Hmm.
That's awesome because you may have existing customers like, oh, I got a lot of I/O on this. Maybe I'll go with the PLC with the display. I don't want to say display port, but with the video port on there. The other
Right.
thing, but I wanted to ask you though, did you do anything because you were relocating the brains from
Hmm.
the all-in-one and
Hmm.
putting it on the DIN rail? Did you do anything different, or did you keep it identical from the user's perspective? I mean, did they get any faster, or are they really just lockstep with the same CPUs that are inside and the same features that are inside the all-in-ones?
Sure. From a performance standpoint, there really isn't a big difference between whether all the components are built into the all-in-one or whether the brains is on the DIN rail.
Okay.
And the the difference would be if for some reason they decided to use our modular controllers without a display at all, then they would see a modest increase in performance, but it's not enough to really mention, frankly.
Is there any extra I/O capabilities, or again, with the goal they had to make them, match the specifications?
Well, certainly from a local I/O standpoint, yes, because our all-in-one controllers, if you're talking about built-in I/O, that range maxes out at about 42 built-in I/O points, and then you expand over basically a remote I/O type system.
Sure.
With the CPUs, you can have up to 7 local I/O modules plugged
Okay.
into the side, which means you could be well over 100 or 150 local I/O points, not counting remotely located I/O over a network.
Excellent. And just for folks who maybe didn't catch our last episode, can you just tell them, like, just quickly, what type of I/O, DIN rail non-I/O, you have available?
That's something I probably should have covered a little bit here. Yeah. So for those who had the visuals, they could see, the style of the I/O that was plugged into the CPUs. We have what we call something called OCS I/O. That's the product name. And that's the same I/O that's used, whether you're talking about plugged into the side of the CPU as modular I/O, or whether it's plugged into a network base and is connected remotely over a network as remote I/O. So it's called OCS I/O, and that includes all the types of I/O you would typically expect: DC in, DC out, relay out, all the different types of analog ins with 16-bit resolution, including support for thermocouples, RTDs, and thermistors, as well as, of course, analog outputs and high-speed counting and all those sorts of things. So it's a very well-developed, robust I/O system that we've developed over the past several years.
Well, that's excellent. Now, I guess my final question would be,
Mhm.
if somebody is watching, they're like, yeah, I really want to check this stuff out.
Mhm.
How do they get in contact with your company?
Sure. Let me show you a slide here. You can reach us at hornerautomation.com. That's our website, where you can learn about all of our products. We have lots of resources there for you. And you can also download our free software. The only requirement is that you just register on our website. We don't ask you too many questions, just a couple questions. You can register on our website and even download our software and check that out. But also available on our website, you can search for product information. We have a video tool that allows you to kind of find videos that we've created. But of course, you can find those as well on our Horner APG YouTube channel. So Horner Automation is our division. Horner APG is our, I guess, official name. So we have a Horner APG YouTube channel where we have hundreds of videos. And then we're also very active as Horner Automation on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, that was an awesome update. And again, that line of CPUs, DIN rail mount CPUs is looked pretty impressive. So really just thank you for coming back on and giving us that update.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it as usual.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed that episode. And I want to thank Chuck for coming on the show and telling us all about their new modular PLCs. I also want to thank Horner Automation for sponsoring this episode so we could release it completely ad-free. With that said, I want to thank you all for tuning in this week. Really appreciate that. We have more episodes coming up in the next few weeks. I do have a trip to an ISA show coming up in probably 3 weeks, so there may not be an episode that week. But in any case, when I'm here, I'm releasing episodes, and I continue to reach out to vendors. If you know any vendors who you'd like to see on the show, please reach out to them. Say, call Shawn. He wants to get you on. And with that, I want to thank you all for tuning in. I want to wish you all good health and happiness. And until next time, my friends, peace.